Hello, all my dear students. I'm Amit Ajmani, your facilitator, and I welcome you all to Sri Jayendra Rank Zone classes. I hope you all are doing good and studying well. Students, in today's class, we are starting up a new chapter, that is heat. So let us start up with heat. First of all, let us know what exactly is meant by temperature. Temperature of a body is defined as the degree of hotness or coldness of that body. So we can say that the temperature of the body is a measure of average kinetic energy of the molecules of the body. And the kinetic energy of the molecules of a body increase as its temperature rises. So how hot or how cold the body is, that is the temperature of a body. And for measuring temperature, we know that we have got a device called thermometer. This thermometer is a device that measures the temperature of a body. Now there are various types of thermometers. The clinical thermometer measures temperature in degree Fahrenheit. And in thermometer, we normally use mercury. Why mercury is used? Because it is opaque, it is shiny, and importantly, it undergoes uniform thermal expansion through a wide range from minus 30 degrees Celsius to 300 degrees Celsius. So the range is quite wide. Now we have got different temperature scales. Let us try to relate one by one. The different types of temperature scales are: number one is the Celsius scale, number two is the Fahrenheit scale, number three is the Kelvin scale, and number four is the Reaumur scale. Let us try to understand the relation between these scales. Now this relation is very important. Please make sure to note it down somewhere and learn properly and thoroughly. These things we need to relate. Let us see. Here C represents the temperature on the Celsius scale, F is on the Fahrenheit scale, R is on the Reaumur scale, and K on the Kelvin scale. The relationship is C upon 100 is equal to F minus 32 upon 180. This can be interchangeable. This is the relationship between Celsius and Fahrenheit. When we are trying to relate between Celsius and Reaumur scale, then C by 100 is equal to R by 80. In the Kelvin scale, if we try to relate, then C by 100 is equal to K minus 273 by 100. Right? Most commonly, we need to relate the Celsius and the Fahrenheit relation and the Celsius and the Kelvin relation. Fine. So, if we try to relate both these, the first relation between Celsius and Fahrenheit can be concluded as the temperature on Celsius scale is equal to 5 by 9 of the temperature on Fahrenheit scale minus 32. And if we try to relate the temperature on Celsius and Kelvin scale, so the temperature on Celsius scale is equal to the temperature on Kelvin scale this is minus 273. This will be the temperature on the Celsius scale. Got it? So these two relationships we need to remember. They will be asked in the examination. Okay, so these were the four scales. Let us come to the actual chapter, that is our heat, and try to relate what heat is. Now what is heat? The form of energy which is exchanged among various bodies or systems on account of temperature difference, that form of energy is called heat. So heat is a form of energy, whereas temperature is the degree of hotness or coldness of the body. Since it is a form of energy, so the SI unit of heat will be joule, as we know that all the forms of energy have the same SI unit, joules. And there is another unit, calorie, that is also widely used. So the SI unit is joule, and the units normally used are joule as well as calorie. Both are used to express heat. Next topic is thermal equilibrium. When two bodies attain the same temperature, then they are said to be in thermal equilibrium with each other. Very importantly, the formula for calculating the quantity of heat which is absorbed or given out by a body when it is mixed with another body, this is the formula. Make sure you learn it. Definitely you will get one question out of this. Here Q is the heat absorbed or heat given out by the body. M is the mass of the body. C is the specific heat of the body, and delta T represents change in temperature of the body. So the heat absorbed or heat given by a body is calculated by this formula. Q is equal to M into C into delta T. This is thermal equilibrium. Next we will talk about thermal expansion. Now what is thermal expansion? When a body is heated, then there is some increase in its size. This increase in size, this expansion is called thermal expansion. Talking about expansion of solids now, all the solids expand on heating, and this expansion of solids upon heating is called the thermal expansion of solids. Now there are three types of this thermal expansion of solids. Let us try to understand all these three one by one. First is the coefficient of linear expansion. Linear expansion means this is the increase in per unit length per degree Celsius rise in temperature. Linear is in a straight line in the lengthwise. So expansion is taking place lengthwise. So coefficient of linear expansion is the increase in per unit length per degree Celsius rise in temperature. This is called coefficient of linear expansion. And how are we going to calculate it? Quite simple is the formula for coefficient of linear expansion is delta L upon L into delta T. Delta L means this is the difference in the length, which we can very well relate as delta L will be equal to L2 minus L1, where L2 is the final length after expansion and L1 is the initial length before expansion. Divided by L means the original length, multiply by the change in temperature. So this is how we'll be calculating the coefficient of linear expansion. Got it? Now the unit of coefficient of linear expansion is per degree Celsius. That how much length is getting expanded per degree Celsius. This is the first type of expansion of solids. The second is superficial expansion. Superficial expansion is the expansion in the area of the solids. And for calculating the coefficient of superficial expansion, Coefficient of super expansion means the increase in per unit area per degree Celsius rise in temperature, that is called coefficient of superficial expansion. That how much per unit area is getting increased per degree Celsius rise in temperature, and its coefficient, also represented by this beta, is calculated by, just as we have seen in the case of linear expansion. Now, rather than writing length, we will be writing area instead. Rest all is same. Change in the area divided by original area multiplied by change in temperature. Right? This is how we will calculate the coefficient of superficial expansion, and once again its unit is again per degree Celsius. Fine. Now third is volume expansion. This is the increase in the volume of a solid when it is heated. Now we will calculate the coefficient of volume expansion. Let us try to understand first what is coefficient of volume expansion. The increase in per unit volume per degree Celsius rise in temperature is called the coefficient of volume expansion. This coefficient of volume expansion, represented by gamma, is change in the volume divided by the original volume multiplied by change in temperature, right? And its unit is again per degree Celsius. So these are the three types of expansions that we related. The first one is the linear expansion, that is the expansion of solids lengthwise. Next, we saw the volume or and the superficial expansion. Superficial is the increase in the area, and volume expansion is the increase in the volume of the solids upon heating. These are the three types of expansions. Whenever solids are heated, they will expand in these three ways. Then we calculated the coefficients of all these: coefficient of linear expansion, coefficient of superficial, coefficient of volume expansion. In case of linear, we saw the formula was delta L, change in the length, divided by original length into change in temperature. In case of superficial, we saw it is the change in area divided by original area multiplied by change in temperature, and the volume expansion is change in volume divided by original volume multiplied by change in temperature. And all these three coefficients have their units same, that is per degree Celsius. The coefficient of linear expansion is represented as alpha, superficial is represented as beta, and volume expansion is represented by gamma. And the relation between these three coefficients are: coefficient of linear expansion is to coefficient of superficial expansion is to coefficient of volume expansion. This is 1 is to 2 is to 3. And that is quite understandable, because if there is any linear expansion, it means lengthwise, and if it will be expansion in the area, so it will be doubled the effect of the length. And if there is an expansion volume wise, obviously it will be tripled of the original length increase. So this is the relation between these three coefficients, and this is our expansion in solids. Now let's come to the next topic, which is expansion of liquids. Just like solids, when we heat the liquids, even they expand. But the liquids have only cubical expansion. Why so? Why not length and area? Because they have no fixed shape and size. So when the liquids are heated, then the vessel, this is vessel, when it is heated, then the vessel in which liquids are kept, they are also heated, because liquids cannot be just kept open. They have to be kept in a vessel. So initially we have to heat the vessel. So first the vessel expands, and then the expansion of liquid will take place, right? So the expansion of liquid is of actually two types. One is the apparent expansion. Now what is apparent expansion? This is the expansion of liquids neglecting the expansion of vessel. So apparently, visually, whatever change we see in the liquids, that is called apparent expansion. In order to calculate the coefficient of apparent expansion, it is calculated by the formula apparent increase in volume divided by initial volume into rise in temperature, right? So this is basically that we are going to calculate the apparent expansion coefficient by this particular formula. So it is delta V in case of liquids divided by the original volume multiplied by the change in temperature. The second type of expansion is the real expansion. Now, this real expansion is the actual increase in the volume of liquid, right? And this real expansion is basically calculated by the change in volume divided by initial volume multiplied by change in temperature. And it also includes the expansion of the solids, because the vessel in which this liquid is heated, that will also expand upon heating. So that effect is also considered. So these are the two types of expansions in liquids. Now let us come to the expansion of gases. When we talk about expansion of gases, there are two coefficients. One is the volume coefficient. What is volume coefficient? The change in volume gas per unit volume per unit degree Celsius constant pressure. This is called the volume coefficient. So the change in volume gas per unit volume per unit degree Celsius constant pressure. So change in volume gas per unit volume per degree Celsius constant pressure is called coefficient of volume expansion. The second is pressure coefficient. What is pressure coefficient? The change in pressure of gas per unit degree Celsius at constant volume. This is called pressure coefficient. So these are the two coefficients in expansion of gases. One is change in volume provided constant pressure is there, and second is change in pressure provided volume is constant. Now after this expansions of solids and liquids and gases, let's come to the next topic, that is thermal capacity. Quite important. What is thermal capacity? The thermal capacity of a body is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of the whole body by 1 degree Celsius. I repeat, thermal capacity is the amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature of the whole body by 1 degree Celsius, and this thermal capacity is calculated by the formula Q is equal to M into C, where M is the mass of the body and C is the specific heat of the body, right? Quite importantly, the SI unit of thermal capacity is joule per degree centigrade. That is joules per degree centigrade. Clear? So this is our thermal capacity. Next, we know what are the melting points and the boiling points. Melting point is the constant temperature at which a solid substance is converted into its liquid state, whereas the boiling point is the constant temperature at which a liquid is converted into its gaseous state. This we all know. Another thing you need to know is calorie. This calorie we have seen above that it is a widely used unit of heat. And what is calorie? How we are going to define it? Calorie is defined as the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 gram water by 1 degree Celsius. And the value of 1 calorie is 4.18 joules. You need to relate this. Okay. The next is specific heat. Now what is specific heat? The specific heat of a substance is the amount of heat which is required to raise the temperature of unit mass of the substance by 1 degree Celsius, right? And the SI unit is joules per kg per degree Celsius. The SI units you need to relate and remember. Correct? Now this specific heat we have already in the previous topics we have seen the formula that Q was equal to M into C into delta T. So keeping C here and rearranging the equation, we can calculate this specific heat by the formula Q upon M into delta T, where Q is the amount of heat given to the substance, M is the mass of the substance, and delta T is the rise in temperature. So this is the formula to calculate specific heat. Now let us talk about the principle of calorimetry. This principle states that, now its application will come in the exam, quite important, please focus. When a hot body is mixed with a cold body, then the heat lost by hot body is equal to the heat gained by the cold body, provided there is a condition that no heat is allowed to escape to the surroundings. So in other words, we can relate the principle of calorimetry as heat gained is equal to heat lost, right? So whenever a hot body and a cold body are mixed together, then the hot body is going to lose its heat, whereas the cold body is going to gain that heat, and that is equal. That is, heat gained by the cold body will be equal to the heat lost by the hot body. Clear? Next term that you are all already aware with is latent heat. We know that we can change the states of matter. We can convert a solid into liquid by heating it, or we can convert a liquid into vapors or the gaseous state by again heating it, right? Now, energy is required to break the bonds when this interconversion of states of matter is done, and latent heat of a substance is defined as the quantity of heat which is supplied to a substance to bring about a change in its state without changing the temperature. Now this is important. Latent heat is simply the amount of heat energy that we are supplying to a substance because of which its state is going to change, but not the temperature. The temperature will remain same. This is called latent heat, and this latent heat is represented in or measured in the unit joules per kilogram, right? Now, if we want to calculate the heat absorbed or heat given out during change of state of a substance, it is calculated by the formula Q is equal to M into L, where Q represents the heat absorbed or the heat given out during the change of state, M relates to the mass of the substance, and L is the latent heat of the substance. Clear? Now this latent heat is of further two types. One is latent heat of fusion. Fusion, we know what is fusion. Fusion or melting is one or the same thing. Fusion is the conversion of a solid into liquid. So latent heat of fusion of a solid is actually the amount of heat required to convert a unit mass of the substance from the solid state to the liquid state without changing the temperature. And the latent heat of fusion of conversion of a solid into liquid, that latent heat of fusion is 80 calories per gram, right? Now this latent heat of fusion is having many applications. For example, one normal simple reasoning is, how does a water cooler cool the air? What exactly happens in a water cooler is that the grass pads, they are used in all the three sides and water is poured over them from the top. The atmospheric air is sucked through the wet pads, which evaporates the water, and hence the cool air comes in. Right? That is based on this particular latent heat of fusion, that it is converting and it is utilizing the heat energy for conversion of one state of matter into another without changing the temperature. Next type of latent heat is that of latent heat of vaporization. What is vaporization? We know the process of conversion of a liquid into gas. So if we are converting a liquid into gas without changing the temperature, that amount of heat energy used or given to bring about that change, that conversion from liquid into gaseous form without the change of temperature, that is called latent heat of vaporization. Let us see how we are going to define it. Latent heat of vaporization of a substance is the amount of heat required to change a unit mass of the substance from the liquid state to the vapor state without changing the temperature. And the latent heat of vaporization is 540 calories per gram. As we can see and relate, the latent heat of vaporization is more than the latent heat of fusion. Got it? Next, let us see what is vaporization. We already know it is the process of converting a liquid into the gaseous state. Right? Now, when example we are taking, when water is heated continuously, even after it attains the boiling point, it receives the latent heat, due to which it changes its state from liquid to the gaseous state. Another term which is used to convert a liquid into gas is evaporation. This is also the process in which a liquid is changing into vapors. So what is the difference between vaporization, which is also called boiling, and this evaporation? Both the processes are same, that a liquid is getting converted into vapor. So where lies the difference? The difference is that in vaporization, a liquid is converted into gaseous at a particular boiling point, whereas in evaporation this liquid is getting converted into vapors below its boiling point. This is the difference between boiling and evaporation. Now this process of evaporation is dependent on various factors. What are those factors? We need to relate and understand. First is the temperature of liquid. Second factor which affects the rate at which evaporation is taking place is the area of exposed surface. Third is the nature of liquid. And fourth is the open space available. Let us try to understand a few things. First is relative humidity. Relative humidity is defined as the ratio of mass of water vapor actually present in the certain volume of air to the mass of water vapors required to saturate the same volume of air at the same temperature. This is relative humidity. And this relative humidity is calculated by the formula small m upon capital M into 100, where small m is the mass of the water vapor actually present in a given volume of air at the certain temperature, whereas this capital M represents the mass of water vapor required to saturate the same volume of air at the same temperature. So this ratio between these two masses is called relative humidity, and it is always expressed in percentage. Clear? So this is our relative humidity. Now there are certain values which are given to us. We need to relate these values. First of all, there is a tabular presentation in which we are given the specific heat capacity of certain materials. First thing is specific heat capacity is expressed in joules per gram degree Celsius, and this is specific heat capacity, which is the values are taken in 10 to the power 3 joules per gram degree Celsius. The specific heat capacity of water is 4.18. Of aluminium is 0.920. Of glass it is 0.669. Of iron it is 0.419. Of copper it is 0.389. Brass is 0.385. Silver is 0.234. Mercury is 0.138. So among these, we can relate that the specific heat capacity of water is much more as compared to the specific heat capacity of normal metals. Right? The next table gives us the values of coefficient of linear expansion of certain material. This coefficient of linear expansion is the values are expressed in 10 to the power minus 5 per degree Celsius. The coefficient of linear expansion in solids, especially in metals, are in aluminium the value is 2.5, brass the coefficient of linear expansion is 1.8, iron 1.2, copper is 1.7, silver is 1.9, gold is 1.4, glass is 0.3, lead is 0.31. So this is our coefficient of linear expansion, which we know that it is the expansion in the length of the solids when they are heated. Next, we studied about the second type of expansion of the solids, that is coefficient of cubical or volume expansion. This is also the values are in 10 to the power minus 5 per degree Celsius. The coefficient of volume expansion of solids, if we talk about, of iron it is 3.55, lead is 0.84, paraffin is 58.4, glass is 2.53. Clear? And when we talk about this value in case of liquids, then we can relate that this value is found in mercury, it is 18.2, in water it is 20.7, petroleum is 89.9, and alcohol is 122. So these are a few values of coefficient of volume or cubical expansion in solids and liquids. Now, let us try to differentiate between a few important things. First is the difference between Fahrenheit thermometer and the Celsius thermometer. In Fahrenheit thermometer, the lower fixed point is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas in Celsius thermometer, the lower fixed point is 0 degrees Celsius. In Fahrenheit, the upper fixed point is 212 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas in Celsius thermometer, the upper fixed point is 100 degrees Celsius. Very important. You have been asked a few questions based on this, that in Fahrenheit thermometer, it is divided into 180 equal divisions, whereas in Celsius thermometer we have got only 100 equal divisions per 1 degree. In Celsius also, in Fahrenheit also, it is per 1 degree. So because Celsius thermometer range is 0 to 100, so it will be 100 equal divisions. But in Fahrenheit, it ranges from 32 degree Fahrenheit to 212 degree Fahrenheit. That is why there are 180 equal divisions. Now this Fahrenheit thermometer is used to find out the temperature of human body, whereas Celsius thermometer, it is used to find out the temperature of any substance and atmosphere also. So these are the main two types of thermometers. We saw the differences between these two. Let us come to the next differences. They are between heat and temperature. At times, as per the layman's, these two are synonymous, but there are lot many differences between them. Let us try to relate those differences. Heat is a form of energy, whereas temperature is just the degree, the measurement of hotness or coldness of a body. The SI unit for measuring heat is joules, whereas the SI unit of temperature is Kelvin. Now this you need to relate because we mostly use degree Celsius. So at times students casually or maybe unknowingly they assume or they write the SI unit of temperature to be degree Celsius, which is not. It is Kelvin. And secondly, we do not use the word Kelvin with the degree. It is not degree Kelvin. It is simply Kelvin. But with Celsius, we use degree. Okay. Next difference is that heat is the sum of potential and kinetic energy of all the molecules of a substance, whereas temperature is the average kinetic energy of all the molecules of a substance. So these are a few basic differences between heat as well as temperature. Let us relate the next point of differences. the difference between specific heat and thermal capacity or thermal heat. Specific heat is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of a unit mass of a substance through 1 degree Celsius. Whereas thermal capacity or thermal heat is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of the whole body by 1 degree Celsius. The SI unit, both very important. The SI unit of specific heat is joules per kilogram per degree Celsius. Whereas the SI unit of thermal heat is joules per degree Celsius, not per kilogram. Why is it so? It is easy to understand because in specific heat we are talking about unit mass of a substance. That is why it is expressed in per kilogram. Whereas thermal heat we are talking of the whole body. So that is why it is only joules per degree Celsius. Got it? Now let's talk about the relationship between heat and work. Now when mechanical work is done, always heat energy is produced. How much heat energy is getting produced? That amount of heat produced is directly proportional to the mechanical work done. Right? So W, because we are saying work done is W, is directly proportional to the heat produced. In order to remove this proportionality, we are using a constant which is J. So it comes to be work done is equal to J into Q, or we can rearrange the equation and write J is equal to W upon Q, where W is the work done, Q is the amount of heat produced, and J is called the mechanical equivalent of heat. So this is the relation between the work done and the heat produced. Clear? Just a very small topic at the end of the chapter is air. Air, we all know it's a mixture of gases. Now this air is of three types. First is dry air, second is humid air, and third is saturated air. What are these? Let us try to understand one by one. Dry air, if the amount of water vapor present in the air is very small, negligibly small, then the air is said to be dry air. If the amount of water vapor present in the air is very large, then the air is said to be humid air. Now when we talk about very large, we are not taking any fixed figure, whether it is 90% water vapor in the atmosphere or 91% or 94%. It's simply generalized. If it is more than 80-85%, we say that it is very humid air. And the next is saturated air. Now what is this saturated air? The air containing maximum amount of water vapor at some particular temperature is called saturated air at that temperature. It is saturated. No more amount of water vapors can be added to the air at a particular temperature. Then we call that air to be saturated air. So these are the three types of air: dry air, humid air, and saturated air. And this is all about our basics of the chapter heat. Just try to brush up what all we did in the chapter. Just try to listen and try to focus, try to relate. In this chapter, firstly we talked about the temperature, then we talked about what thermometer is and what are the various types of temperature scales. In thermometers, we use mercury. We need to relate the reason why mercury is commonly used in the thermometers, and the reason is because it is opaque, it is shiny, and it undergoes uniform thermal expansion through a very wide range, and its range varies from minus 30 degrees Celsius to 300 degrees Celsius. Then we talked about the temperature scales, four types of temperature scales. We discussed the Celsius scale, Kelvin scale, Fahrenheit scale, and Reaumur scale. Very importantly, we need to learn the relation between them. And what was the relation? We specified the relation as Celsius temperature C by 100 is equal to F Fahrenheit scale value minus 32 upon the value is 180, right? And this is also equal to temperature on Reaumur scale by 80, and in case of Kelvin scale it is Kelvin minus 273 divided by 100. So this is what you need to remember. Second thing, of representing the temperature on degree Celsius and Fahrenheit, the temperature on degree Celsius can be calculated by the formula which has come from this above equation only, that is 5 by 9 degree on Fahrenheit scale minus 32. These are what you need to relate and remember. Then we talked about heat. We talked about thermal equilibrium, in which we saw that when the two bodies attain the same temperature, then they are called to be in thermal equilibrium. And in order to calculate the formula for heat absorbed or given, the formula was M into C into delta T. Right, where M is the mass, C is the specific heat, and delta T is change in temperature. Right, very importantly, if we needed to calculate the value of specific heat, we use the same formula, and specific heat was equal to, rearranging the equation, we get Q divided by M into delta T. Another thing, thermal capacity. Because in thermal capacity we are increasing the temperature of the whole body by 1 degree Celsius. So the change in temperature is 1 degree. So multiply by 1, it can be removed, and we utilize the same formula for calculating the thermal capacity, which comes out to be Q is equal to M into C. Clear? After that we talked about the thermal expansion in all the three forms, whether it was solid, liquid or gas. We talked about the various coefficients. In case of expansion of solids, we saw three types of expansions: linear expansion, the superficial expansion, and the volume expansion. Linear expansion, length; superficial expansion is the area; and the volume expansion is of course the volume. All these three coefficients have their unit per degree Celsius. Another important thing, we calculated all the three coefficients by the change divided by original into change in temperature. If we want to know about the linear expansion, it was change in length by original length into change in temperature. If it was superficial, then it was change in area divided by original area multiplied by change in temperature. If it was volume, then change in volume divided by original volume multiplied by change in temperature. This was the expansion in case of solids. In case of liquids, there were two type of expansions that we saw, apparent and real. Right? Apparent is without considering the expansion of vessel, and real is considering the expansion of the vessel also. In case of expansion of gases, we saw two coefficients, volume coefficient and pressure coefficient. Then we talked about calorie, another unit, and it is the heat required to raise the temperature of 1 gram water by 1 degree Celsius. And we need to relate that 1 calorie is equal to how many joules? 4.18 joule. This relation we need to relate. Quite importantly, we talked about principle of calorimetry, which stated that heat gained is always equal to heat lost. Next, we talked about the latent heat, right? It is the amount of heat energy which is required to change the state of matter, fine, without changing the temperature. Now, this latent heat is further of two types, latent heat of fusion and latent heat of vaporization. Then we related the difference between vaporization and evaporation and the factors affecting the rate of evaporation. We dealt with relative humidity, how to calculate it, and we saw few differences between Fahrenheit thermometer and Celsius thermometer. Then we differentiated between heat and temperature. We differentiated between specific heat and thermal heat. We saw the relationship between heat and work, that is work done is equal to the constant mechanical equivalent of heat multiplied by heat produced. And we saw the three types of air: dry air, humid air and saturated air. So this is all about the chapter heat. I hope whatever we have discussed, whatever we have studied, you all understood. And as always, in the end of every completion of the chapter class, I always try to advise you people to learn it side by side, because in the next class we'll be discussing the questions, and if you are already prepared, it always gives you an edge over the other students. It is always better to learn and to attempt the test, the questions confidently on your own, trying to check your own preparation level by relating what questions you have learned and what are new. And only those students who are already prepared with the text, who have already learned, will be able to relate as to what questions were there in the book, what questions were being told that they were important, and if there is any new question or a different type question, you will at once come to know, and accordingly you can note it down for your future reference. Right? So we'll meet up in the next class with the question answers of the chapter heat. Till then, take care of yourself, enjoy as well as study hard. Goodbye everyone.